No one came to support my son during his heart surgery. Not a single familiar face in the blinding white waiting room. The clock struck 6 and the doors swallowed him. I sat alone among strangers, holding hands that weren't meant for me. Hours dragged by and families came and went with smiles, leaving my chair empty, my phone silent. 3 days later, a message finally appeared. Need $5,000 for your sister's wedding dress. I sent 50 cents with a single line. Go ahead with the veil. The next morning the bank called. That's when everything in our family started to fracture. Before I go further, tell me, where are you listening from? So I know I'm not speaking into emptiness. And when this is done, I want to hear, what would you have done in my place? I grew up learning to fade into the background. In our house, love ran on a schedule and it never aligned with mine. Straight A's earned me a nod but never praise. Don't brag, Ava's sensitive, Mom would say. Fix a leaky faucet? Dad smiled as if it were his idea. Peace came cheaper than recognition. Ava cried over a lost necklace, and the house erupted in chaos. I misplaced a trophy and Mom sighed. Stop being dramatic, Claire. It's just a thing. That's when I stopped asking for help. I became invisible, reliable, the one no one checked on because I was always fine. When I landed my first steady job at the hospital, Mom called. Maybe you can help Ava with her business. She hadn't graduated yet. I said yes because I always said yes. And then came the conversation that set the pattern in stone. Mom and Dad sat across from me at my kitchen table, hands folded. It would be easier if we had access to your savings, Mom said. Family helps family. Dad added, you're organized, Claire. We'd never touch it unless necessary. I signed the papers. They left, leaving the faint smell of coffee and a silence that clung to my chest. That day I realized I hadn't just given access. I'd given permission. Emergencies became a broken dishwasher, vacation deposits for Ava, or bridal shower funds. Every withdrawal arrived with a thank you text that read more like a receipt. Calls? Visits? Forget it. Just expectation disguised as gratitude. Still I stayed silent. Ava bragged about Mom believing in her. I smiled. Dad told friends both daughters were thriving. I nodded. But only one of us ever got a seat at the table. The last Sunday before Leo's surgery, dinner was the same as always. Ava gushed about her wedding and Mom shone. It'll be the event of the year. Not a word about Leo. I passed the mashed potatoes, pretending indifference. But I cared. Always did. That night, after they left, I reviewed hospital forms and pre-surgery checklists. Leo slept on the couch, his small chest rising beneath the blanket. My phone buzzed with a group chat. Ava's dress fitting tomorrow. Can everyone pitch in for the final payment? I stared until the screen dimmed. No reply. I opened Leo's folder and checked every box, every form, every instruction. That's what I do. I show up when no one else will. 3 days later, the house was too quiet. The air purifier hummed, the clock clicked. Everything louder than it should be. Leo slept on the couch, fragile and slow breathing. I made soup, keeping it low, careful not to disturb the only piece we had left. Then my phone buzzed. 3 short vibrations, 1 message. Need $5,000 for your sister's wedding dress. Everyone's contributing by Friday. I read it again. No, how's Leo? How are you holding up? Just a deadline. I stood at the counter, soup cooling in my hand, the reflection of the light hovering where my face should have been. I didn't respond. I didn't throw the phone. I just let it sit there. Its silence louder than any words. Later, I scrolled old messages, searching for proof they'd ever cared. Mostly logistics. Photos. Venues. White dresses. For years, I'd convinced myself their silence wasn't rejection. Just noise. But now, standing there in the dim kitchen light, I knew. It was never just noise. The truth had been creeping toward me for years. But that night it finally settled, cold, steady, unavoidable. I stood in the kitchen, spoon in hand, realizing something I had spent my whole life avoiding. They didn't forget me. They chose not to remember. I ladled soup into a bowl, set it on the counter and switched off the lights. The house dropped into darkness except for the soft glow from Leo's room. That's when I knew. The next message I sent would break every pattern I had spent years performing. I didn't respond to my mother's text. I just stared at it until the light faded and the screen went black. Then I flipped the phone face down the way you cover a grave. For the first night since Leo's surgery, he slept peacefully. The quiet didn't comfort me. It simply made enough space for my thoughts to breathe on their own. At the kitchen counter under the soft glow of a single lamp, I spread out Bill's medical paperwork, hospital forms and receipts. Everything I had kept orderly because no one else ever bothered. When I opened my banking app, my emergency fund blinked back at me. The same account I'd built with years of skip vacations, late-night shifts and side projects. The same account my parents had joint access to. To them, emergency had never meant heart surgery. It meant a broken dishwasher, a rehearsal dinner deposit, a last-minute dress. I scrolled through the history. $200, $500, $1,000. Tiny withdrawals that felt like cuts, each one carved out of me in the name of family duty. I tapped transfer, typed 0.50, and in the note wrote by a veil. Send. The confirmation chimed. A small delicate sound. I exhaled and turned off the phone. Not satisfaction. Not triumph. Just stillness. Morning. The house filled with the smell of toast and coffee. Leo sat at the table drawing rockets on the back of an envelope. Can we see Grandma after I get better? He asked. Not right now, sweetheart, I said steadily. They're busy with wedding things. He accepted it easily, easier than I ever had. When he left with the nurse for his follow-up appointment, I opened my laptop. The login screen glowed pale and patient. I went straight to account settings. Remove joint access. Click. Confirm for Linda Whitman. Click. Confirm for Gerald Whitman. Click. Each confirmation sounded like a clean tear through thick paper. Then, new password. Two-step verification. Print confirmation. File under access removed. A new tab in my life closed and sealed. By noon, the house was filled with the tap of keys, the hum of the fridge, the steady buzz of the printer. No chatter. No apologies. Just the sound of rebuilding. 2:10 p.m. The doorbell rang. That knock, impatient, familiar. Caleb. He stood on the porch with his hands shoved in his pockets, eyes flicking anywhere except my face. Mom's upset, he said. She says you froze her account. It's my account, I replied quietly. He frowned. She said it was family money. It's not. Every dollar in there was mine. She said you promised. I promised to help in emergencies. Leo's heart surgery was an emergency. They didn't show up. The promise ended there. He swallowed, guilt surfacing. You could have told us how serious it was. I did. I met his eyes. You just didn't want to hear it. For a moment the old instinct rose, the urge to explain, to soothe, to make him comfortable. I let it die. Mom said you sent her 50 cents. I did. Why? Because that's exactly what her concern was worth. He didn't argue. He just looked at me like I'd become someone he didn't recognize. Then he left. When the door clicked shut, my pulse stayed steady. For the first time, silence didn't feel like surrender. Felt like structure. Evening. Leo and I sat together on the couch, the sunset turning the room gold. He drew more rockets. The TV stayed muted. My phone buzzed on the counter, unknown numbers one after another. I ignored them. Instead, I opened my email. Bank notice. Access changes confirmed. All former authorizations revoked. I read it twice. Then again. Not out of doubt, but to imprint the moment the exact second control returned to me. I printed the email, slid it into the folder, and labeled it proof. After dinner, I tucked Leo into bed. He fell asleep mid-sentence, his small hand curled around mine. His scar glimmered under the lamplight. Quiet evidence of what was truly worth protecting. In the kitchen, I poured a glass of water and stared out the window. Neighbors' houses lit up across the street. Families laughing, gathering, moving through evenings that no longer included me. For once it didn't hurt. Because tonight I wasn't left out. I had chosen to step away. Before bed, I looked at the folder one more time, orderly, intact, final. Not a record of revenge, but of correction. The beginning of something cleaner. Quieter. Mine. I closed the laptop, switched off the light, and let the silence stay. This time it belonged to me. The next morning, gray light slanted through the blinds. The quiet hum of the refrigerator filled the kitchen. Leo was still asleep. I poured coffee, watching the steam curl from the mug, the house holding its breath. The phone rang once, twice, then stopped. Seconds later it rang again. Unknown number. I answered. Ms. Whitman? This is Ethan Cole from Pacific Union Bank. A calm, measured voice said. Your mother is here in my office. She says she's having trouble accessing a shared account. I stared at the wall, at a crack running up from the baseboard. There's no shared account, I said evenly. She was an authorized user. That access has been revoked. A pause. Understood. She insists it's a family fund, not an individual account. It's my savings, I replied. Every deposit came from my paychecks. There's nothing to dispute. Through the receiver I heard muffled voices, my mother's tone rising sharp and desperate. Tell her she can't just take our money. Tell her. Mr. Cole stayed calm. Would you like me to explain the policy to her? Yes, I said. And please note the time of this call for your records. The line went silent. A soft click. I set the phone down. The clock ticked once, twice, loud enough to sound like applause in an empty theater. An hour later, someone pounded on the door. I didn't move. Knocks came again, then a familiar voice shouting. Claire, you can't do this. Mom's in tears. Ava. I opened the door just enough to meet her eyes. You skipped my son's surgery for cake tastings, I said. Don't lecture me about tears. Her face twisted. That's not fair. No, it isn't, I said. She pushed forward, but the chain lock held. You think freezing Mom's access fixes anything? You've humiliated her. She humiliated herself, I said quietly. All I did was log out. For a moment, silence. Her eyes flicked to the stack of neatly labeled folders on the table, evidence of a woman who had stopped asking permission. You're destroying this family, Ava whispered. No, I said, voice steady. I'm just not funding it anymore. She left without slamming the door. By noon the calls slowed. By 2 p.m. they stopped. I sat in the stillness, coffee long gone cold, the mug heavy in my hands. Outside, life carried on, traffic lights changing, people crossing streets. Unaware that a quiet war had ended in my kitchen. Later, an email from the bank arrived. Account audit complete. All external access permanently closed, confirmation attached. I printed the PDF. The printer's soft rhythm felt final. Leo woke, hair messy, pajamas wrinkled. Mom, can we make pancakes tomorrow? Of course, I said, smoothing his hair. He smiled and went back to bed. The house went quiet again, but this time the silence wasn't empty, it was earned. I slid the confirmation into the folder marked proof and locked it in the drawer. A small ceremony, unspoken but complete. 2 months passed. Life found a rhythm again. School drop-offs, grocery lists, neighborly small talk. Leo healed faster than expected. His scar had faded to pale pink, catching the light when he lifted his shirt to show how strong he'd grown. Mornings smelled like pancakes and coffee instead of antiseptic and worry. I stopped checking my phone for messages that never came. The silence softened into calm. One evening near dusk the doorbell rang. On the doormat was an envelope. No return address, my name written in my father's handwriting. Inside, a check for $5,000 and a letter folded neatly. Claire, it read. We were wrong. The wedding wasn't an emergency. Leo's surgery was. We chose wrong and hurt you both. This check isn't for you to cash. It's a reminder of the value we forgot. I expect no forgiveness, only that you know I finally understand. I read it twice, then placed it beside the cooling kettle. Leo padded into the kitchen, clutching his blanket. Mom, who's it from? He wrote to say he's sorry. Does that mean we have to see them? No, I said softly. It just means they're learning. We don't have to open the door until we're ready. The sun sank, the apartment glowing soft gold. I slipped the letter into the folder behind the bank confirmation, proof of what was taken, and what was finally mine again. Through the window our reflections caught the light, 2 shapes steady and unbroken. I didn't cash the check. I let the silence keep it. Family isn't a debt to pay. It's a choice to keep or let go. Peace isn't fixing everything. It's what remains when you stop explaining yourself. And the silence finally sounded like home.